everybody, welcome to True Stream, talking about art and life as an artist. Here's your host, artist and educator Bobby Chu.
As we travel through this road called our art careers, one has to be careful of taking the wrong turns and making sure to avoid bad habits. For more than a decade, I found many of these bad habits to be quite common. So in this video, I want to share with you 6 habits for us to avoid so that we can have wonderful, long-lasting careers. Number 1, getting information from only one source. You don't want to do that because if you are just learning from one person or just one book, one whatever course, then you become a watered down version of that person. And think of it this way, the more info that we get, the more options we get, the more knowledge we get, and the much higher chance of evolving to a level that perhaps would be unreachable any other way. The other day I was talking about the influences in my career. Many of them you wouldn't really guess if you just kind of looked at my art and I asked you, what do you think this artist's influences were? One of my big influences from very early on was Sergio Aragonés. Very different from what I do. Or is it? The thing that I took away from him is that Sergio Aragonés' work is so universal. You don't need to know English to really understand what he's trying to say to you. You could speak only Chinese, only Arabic, only whatever. His humor is universal. And that was something that I loved about his work, and I try to put that into my work as much as possible. Then there's other influences like Steven Silver, Peter DeSev, Chris Sanders for character design. If you look at the shapes, the general shapes of my characters, my creatures, you'll start to see that influence as well. If you asked me early on in my career who were my influences, those would be the ones that I would tell you. So the other day, the topic of influences came up, and those were the ones that I said right off the bat. Those were the ones that I've been saying for years and years. But after some self-reflection and looking at my art again, I realized I missed so many more because I just kept picking up these influences. I kept sprinkling the things that I loved about their art into my cauldron of style, so to speak. And just like a big, wonderful soup, you're only going to put in ingredients that you like to eat, which makes that soup reflect you and your personality in a way. And many of the best artists in the world, when you look at their art, then you meet them in person, you can see the connection. You can see why they draw the way that they do because their style actually reflects them as a person. And that level of connection from the artist to her or his style, I find to be the similarity between most, if not all, the best artists in the world. So even if you found a style or an artist that you really love, I'm telling you, don't stop there. Keep going. And this is really hard for me to say because I'm a teacher. So as a teacher, naturally, you would want to take kind of like credit or ownership for molding your students and making them awesome and developing them into wonderful, amazing artists. But the best way I can do that is to tell them, this is how I do things. These are my thoughts behind my process. But please do not stop there. Learn how other people do things. That's how we're going to become really great artists. The number 2 habit to avoid is when people stop posting on social media. A lot of times, social media, I've said this a few times, in many different ways, but it's such an important one. When you are in the beginning of your career, a lot of times that's exactly how we start our careers, by posting on social media, by getting our stuff out there for people to know our names, to know our work, and hopefully give us more work. And then hopefully, if things are done right, people will pick up on it, you will get noticed, and your career will start. People will start giving you work. But as you start to work more and more on amazing projects, many times these projects, they can't even be shown for a very long time. Sometimes never at all. And many times We'll put the idea of doing work as being more important than doing art just for yourself, personal work, personal exploration. Art becomes just a job, there is no more personal work, and your stuff isn't really shown on social media anymore. We've all seen artists like this. If you've been on the internet long enough, you'll see artists really flare up and everybody loves them and they're everywhere and people just can't get enough. Then they slowly just disappear. Sometimes this is fine. Sometimes you get into the industry, your name gets around, and you go from project to project, and you have tons of work, and it's a wonderful time. People like Crash McQuarrie comes to mind for this example. He worked on things like Jurassic Park. He's worked on things like Pirates of the Caribbean, designing the incredible iconic character of Davy Jones, as well as so many other movie projects. If you just look up his name, Crash McQuarrie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you look for his website, you look for his social media, I don't think he really has any. Yet he's been able to work for decades doing amazing, top of the line projects that anybody would be lucky to be a part of. But I can tell you that that will become more and more of a rarity, especially for the people that don't actually live in the hub of wherever the industry is happening. But even if you do live in one of these booming cities for your particular art industry, I'm telling you, it's still super important to keep posting on social media, to keep putting your stuff out there. I've seen too many people kind of depend on the studio that they're working for as their claim to fame. I knew of one such artist that got laid off by probably the most sought after animation studio in the world. And now he was unemployed and looking for a job. The first little while is great because he could say, "Who am I?" "Well, I used to work for such and such studio." And then people would go, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh, you worked on this, you worked on that." And then time goes on. And then it becomes, "Oh, well, I used to work for such and such studio a year ago, 2 years ago." How long can you keep using that before you feel like, "Oh man, I need something new"? If we use the studio or the project that we're working for or working on as our claim to fame, that's only good until you stop working on the project or you stop working for that studio for a while. Because it gets old, it gets irrelevant, it becomes part of the past. Also, when you're depending on a studio and that is your only ticket for people to know who you are and what you do, that's only going to be as good as how long you're at the studio. One thing that nobody can take away from us is our name, and that's why your name is the most important thing, and that's why we should always keep the habit of posting art, to post stuff through ourselves on social media, because when it comes down to it and things get challenging, the people that have been putting their names out there all this time, those are the ones that will bounce back the quickest generally. The third habit to avoid is being all about business 24/7. I've always prided myself for my efficiency. I'm always trying to be more and more efficient. I'm always trying to do things in a quicker, better, faster way. For example, nowadays I have a lot of meetings with very high profile artists and trying to help them create their schoolism class. Now, these are people that are extremely busy, people that have a lot on their plate, a lot on their schedule. So I try to make it as easy as possible, trying to make these meetings as short as possible. So then I would just make it all about business. Let's talk about task one, task two, task three. How did they go? Do you need any help? What's next to work on? And even though this can be very effective to produce work, I think in the long run, it's still really important to work on your personal connection as well. I found that with some people, they want to talk about personal stuff with me and, just everyday stuff. So I would do that. And I found that over time, I felt closer to those people than I did with the others, where I would just go bang, 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 bang. And did you do this? Did you do that? And it's all about business. But to get anything big done, many times that personal relationship becomes a super important part of the overall success that you'll have in a project or career. With tasks that don't involve other people, yeah, I would totally be all about business. Let's get it done. Let's go efficiently. But now when I'm talking with people, I make sure that I try to get to know them better. Let them have an opportunity to get to know me better. This way, not only are you building stronger bonds between people, but you're also getting to know them better, which will help you with the work as well. Some people, you want to give them very harsh criticism, perhaps, very strict criticism. Some people, you want to really compliment them and encourage them and try to pick them up. Some people, when you pick them up too much, they think that they already arrived and they don't have the motivation to push even further. So by getting to know people on a personal level, you'll be able to know what will move them better, what to avoid, and everything in between to make whatever it is that you guys are trying to do more effective, more efficient. Number 4, one of the big habits to avoid is getting jaded. Now, a lot of times this usually happens to more like veterans in the business. They've been in the business for like 10 years and they kind of hate it. But I've also seen this with many just students even. It's getting jaded super quick. One priceless piece of advice came from one of my absolute artistic heroes that I feel very privileged to call my friend, Brenda Chapman, first ever female director for animated film to win the Oscar. And she said, when you're not feeling good about your project and things like that, what you want to do is focus in on the slices of that project that you really love and really try to expand that. Focus on those things. Focus on the things that you love, and you'll have a much better time and ability to enjoy the project you're on. Something else I do to keep myself from being jaded is feeding my artistic soul. Every few years, Kay and I, we will take some time off to do a gallery show at our friend's gallery, Art Ludique in Paris, France. It's a chance for us to get away from it all, to go back to making completely independent art, to go back to traditional painting and drawing, and just do something completely different and fun from our everyday work that we usually do. But of course, not everybody has friends that have a beautiful gallery in Paris, France, that they can do a gallery show for. That would be fun. But every day we have an opportunity to make our own art. And then there's things like Inktober, sketch dailies, or Mermay, where everybody draws mermaids for the month of May. Now, sometimes this advice doesn't always work. I was going through a slump with my own art earlier this year, and it's because everything that I wanted to paint, even for myself, I didn't like it. And most of all, I didn't like any of the ideas that I was coming up with. I didn't feel like they were exciting enough for me to really put my heart and soul and my effort behind it. I just didn't want to do them. The solution that I found for this problem was that I started to learn something. I took a lesson. I'm not just trying to learn by myself, I'm taking instructions. I'm looking for somebody's instructions of how they did something, how did they think about things. And I try to learn that. Hopefully it comes with assignments too, because then it gives you kind of parameters of what you can draw, what you can paint. And then it becomes much easier to come up with good ideas that you can get behind. Or perhaps they supply the idea for you and you're just trying to learn the techniques and apply them correctly. That's wonderful because all of a sudden, so many of the questions go out the door. What should I paint? How's this idea? Do I like this idea? Things like that. It all goes out the door and you could just do what you've been instructed. A lot of times that becomes very energizing. It's great for the artistic soul and will keep you away from being jaded. Number 5 habit to avoid. Don't tag artists on your work so that they'll look at it. This is a horrible habit. Years ago, it came in a different way. Perhaps it was on a forum, you put up some art, people go and they look at your art and they go, nice job. And then they go, check out my work. Or they just simply say, check out my work, and they put a tag there. Exposure isn't always good. You want to have the right kind of exposure. You want to send the right message. Nowadays, I get tagged on my Instagram or whatever else on a constant. Does it make me want to look at your work and say how awesome it is? Actually, never, because it's kind of annoying. Well, then how do you get people to look at your work? If we want people to be helpful to us, then we have to try to be helpful to them. And a lot of times, if you want to start the interaction, then start being helpful to people first before you ask them to do anything. Like what I said in the previous tip, don't make it all about business 24/7. Try to be personable. Try to get on people's good sides. Try to learn what they're all about. Get to know them. Create a relationship before you ask for any favors. And when you ask for a favor, think about it from their perspective. If they're super busy and they are a very prolific, very up there artist, then most likely they won't have a lot of time to write big, long responses for you. For those kind of things, make your questions very specific and very easy to answer. Another really great way for artists that you admire to notice you, and appreciate what you do is first be an advocate of them. If you admire them, you like them for some reason or another, help them spread the word. Most of the time when people say nice things about me, I know that I will respond to them, I will retweet them, or share it on my Facebook page or whatever it might be. You do that enough times, and I start to recognize your name. There's many people in my live stream that I feel close to, and if I ever met them, many of these people I never have met them. But if I did meet them, I guarantee you there is going to be instant connection, and they become much more to me than one of the likes on an image I might have posted. Number 6, we left the best for last, and that is don't stop learning. Learning is the ultimate antidote for most, if not all, the different problems you can have in your art career. Even people that have a bad attitude, to a certain extent, if they kind of have like not so good attitude, but they can draw and paint amazingly, they will still get jobs. But of course, it is much better if you don't have a bad attitude. If you never stop learning, people will notice you a lot more. So when you put stuff on social media, it will gain the attention of the right people. If you never stop learning, you won't have to worry about the first point I was saying of getting information from only one source, because you're constantly learning, you're constantly leveling up. It's this never-ending cycle. That's what we want to go towards, being a person that is constantly learning. Just the other day, I had this really nice compliment from one of my artistic heroes, Thomas Fluharty, an amazing painter, amazing draftsman, amazing drawer. And he was saying that one thing he admired about me was that I constantly keep learning. I'm always taking a class. I'm always diving into a book. It's more than just practicing. I do that as well. But I'm always looking for more information, more lessons, constantly leveling up. And even if you start off with very little talent, very little skill in the beginning, if you are a person that adopts this one trait of never stopping your learning, always putting in that effort, always putting in that time to level up your knowledge, you will have a successful career. You will become an amazing artist, because so few people keep doing this. This is exactly why we created schoolism.com, is because I had a bit to offer and a bit to teach other people. But even more than that, it gave me the best excuse ever to ask all of the people that I would love to learn from to teach on schoolism, to teach the world, and in turn, I get to learn from them. So even though that could be looked at as slightly a kind of selfish reason to create schoolism, is a very honest reason of trying to gather the best information in the world, the best artists in the world, so that I can learn from them. It wasn't about building a living off of teaching. So in other words, it wasn't about the money. We all have our jobs. We do this out of passion. And in the grand scheme of things, I could tell you firsthand, working on a really cool project like designing the characters for Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, that was really great. That was really fulfilling. Perhaps you might inspire a few people. But when you teach somebody, it goes beyond just inspiring somebody. You can literally change their lives in a better way. And that's why I encourage you to teach someone else if you have something to offer. I know for me, starting schoolism and sharing what I've learned has become literally one of the most humbling and most gratifying things I've done. So I hope this video has helped you, and I hope to see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Subscribe to this channel so you won't miss out on the latest artist interviews, tutorials, and other news/advice made especially for the art community. If you find these videos helpful, pass them on to the other artists in your life. Thanks for watching.